Bread is getting expensive. With cost of everything going through the roof these days, it's cheaper to make your own bread at home. So today I'm going to show you how to make a simple, delicious, no-knead artisan style loaf. So let's get into it. The best part about this dough is you can get everything ready the night before and bake some fresh bread in the morning. First, we're going to place 450 grams or 3 cups of flour into a mixing bowl. Then we're going to add in 2 teaspoons of salt. Then we're going to give that a good whisk to mix the salt into the flour. Now add 1 teaspoon of yeast to 315 mils or 1 1/4 cups of lukewarm room temperature water. Now you can wait a few minutes to see if your yeast is alive. I know mine's alive, so I'm just going to take this and we're going to make a little well in the middle of our flour and pour our water and yeast in. So this is a really sticky dough. I like to use wooden spoon and some gloves while I'm mixing this. So let's start incorporating that water into the flour. So this gets really sticky. So as I'm mixing it, I like to stop using the spoon, switch to my hands with a glove on. I find the dough doesn't stick to your glove as much as your hands, and it's easier to clean afterwards. So once you have your glove on, get in and start massaging that dough. We're not kneading it here. We're just trying to make sure we incorporate all that water into the flour and everything's evenly mixed. We're going to cover this with saran wrap and place this on the counter for 8 to 12 hours or overnight. Now, if you want to do this dough a couple days in advance, you can cover it and put it in the fridge for a few days. It's actually going to add a bit more flavor to it than just doing overnight, but you want to make sure you use it within about 3 days. So now that our dough is mixed and we let it rest for 8 to 12 hours or overnight, we're ready to do our first stretch and fold. This dough is really sticky, so we're not able to actually knead this dough, and it is a no-knead dough recipe, but we still need to agitate the dough. The best way to do that is the stretch and fold method. So what we're going to do is wet our hands, grab some of the dough and pull it and stretch it as high as it can go before it'll break, and then fold it back on top of itself. Now you're going to turn your bowl about 45 degrees and do the same thing again. Bring it up, stretch it, fold it down, and repeat this about 12 to 15 times. You'll notice as you do this, the dough gets less and less sticky and a lot easier to work with. It'll get to the point where you're able to form a ball out of this. So once that's formed into a little ball, we're going to take another bowl. We're going to give it a nice coating of flour to keep it from sticking. If you want, you can spray this or rub it with a little bit of oil on the bowl just to make sure it doesn't stick, because this dough can be quite sticky. And then you could add your flour on top of the oil. Now we're going to take our dough ball and transfer it into our new bowl, and then sprinkle with a bit more flour on top, and then cover it with saran wrap and place it aside for 1 to 2 hours or until it doubles in size. This could change a bit depending on the temperature of your house. So once it roughly doubles in size, it's ready to go. So while your dough is resting, we're going to preheat our oven to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to be baking our bread actually in a Dutch oven and not directly in the oven. So it'll be an oven in an oven is what we're going to be making here. Now you want to grab a cast iron Dutch oven and place that into the oven as well. So you want to preheat that for a solid hour to make sure it's nice and hot for when we bake our bread. I'm using a special pan for this. It's a Challenger bakeware pan. Essentially what it is an upside down Dutch oven that you place the bread on the bottom and you put your big Dutch oven on top. You can get one of these if you want. It's not necessary. The Dutch oven works just as good. The only thing this has a benefit over is it's easier to put the dough on this pan because there's no sides. Unlike a Dutch oven where you have to be careful when you place your dough into the oven, you don't want to burn the side of your hands placing it in, so you gotta be quick. Either way, use whatever you have. This works in both the exact same way. I just have this pan because I bake a lot of bread, it makes it a little bit easier for me. So once our dough is doubled in size, we're gonna remove our Dutch oven from the oven and carefully, with gloves, remove the top. So here's the tricky part. We wanna get our dough from the bowl to the Dutch oven without destroying it. So you wanna make sure it's well floured. I like to flour up my hands beforehand, make sure they don't stick to the dough. Quickly and confidently grab the dough and place it into the pan as fast as you can without destroying the dough. Now while making this video, I did not move quick enough and my dough got a little stretched, but it still came out amazing, so don't stress too much if it doesn't come out perfect. If this is your first attempt, you will get better at it. You should have seen the first time I did it, it was a mangled mess. And even now, I made a mangled mess and it still came out tasty, so don't stress too much. Now, optionally, before you put this in the oven, you can score the top of your bread. It's gonna give it a nice look to it when it's finished. It's gonna make it Instagram worthy, so if you really wanna get to that nice Instagram picture, make sure you give it a score across the top. Once you have the score down your bread, place the top on, and we're gonna put that back into the oven and bake it for about 30 minutes. After 30 minutes has elapsed, we're going to remove it from the oven, take the top off, and place it back in the oven and cook it until it gets a nice golden brown, about 20 to 30 minutes, depending on your oven. You know the bread is done when it hits 190 degrees. Pull it out, place it onto a wire rack, and let it cool down. You want to let this bread cool for about an hour at least before you cut it, because if not, there's still a lot of steam in there and it's just going to make a gummy, doughy interior, and it's gonna let all that moisture out and it's not gonna be a good time. So you really wanna make sure you wait for an hour, let the bread rest, and then you can slice into it, top with some delicious butter, and enjoy. And that's how you make a super simple, delicious tasting loaf of bread. Make sure you give it a try, and if you liked the video, give a thumbs up, a subscribe down below, and until next time, FOOD-DEE out.